Apologies, I've already left as when I was at the rest area using the restroom. I received an unexpected call from Michael. Amid the laughter of his in-laws in the background, he dropped quite the shocker. "We're going to have a great time with the family," he said. "You can head back home and maybe do some cleaning." I was really looking forward to this trip, especially since it had been a while since our last getaway. Despite some hesitations about traveling with his family, the thought of staying at a luxurious inn had me excited. But to be left behind like this was astonishing. In the solitude of the restroom stall, I trembled with a sense of deep betrayal. Struggling to keep my composure, I managed a calm response. "Okay." However, this was no ordinary day. It was both our wedding anniversary and my birthday, and he chose to leave me stranded. "I'm Scarlett, a 29-year-old housewife without children, living with my husband Michael. Today marks our first wedding anniversary, which also happens to be on my birthday." Michael has always had a flair for celebrating special occasions with grand gestures, influenced perhaps by his childhood filled with luxurious dinners and overseas trips, thanks to his family's wealth. His father is the CEO of Mitchell Securities, and his mother fully enjoys the opulent lifestyle, fitting the wife of a business magnate. Our initial encounter was at a matchmaking agency frequented by affluent men like Michael. Despite the odds, it turned out I was just his type, which led to our marriage, a union not driven by financial motives, as I was genuinely in love and thrilled to realize my dream of getting married. However, after the wedding, our life took a challenging turn. We started off in a modest 2-bedroom city apartment. Michael was inclined towards a larger home, but I felt a smaller place was sufficient given our current situation, despite the hefty $2,800 monthly rent. "Don't worry, my dad will handle it," Michael would reassure me, emphasizing that the financial burden wasn't a concern for him. And indeed, the following month, his salary was bumped up by $700, a move he claimed was timely and deserved. "I won't let you face any hardships," he assured me. Despite his reliance on his family's support, I often wondered about the fairness towards his colleagues and the overall propriety of such advantages. Despite Michael's father's influence and financial backing, I felt a wave of gratitude when he mentioned the raise in his salary. I didn't question him further. "By the way, I'm having dinner with my parents today," Michael casually dropped as he prepared to leave. "A business dinner?" I asked, hopeful for some normalcy. "No, just a family one. I should be back by 12. "Take care," he replied nonchalantly. His casual mention of dining with his parents on what seemed to be a regular evening caught me off guard, and in a daze, I watched him say, "I should get going," before leaving. Dinner with his parents on a weekday? And today of all days, it's Friday. I hadn't heard anything about this plan. Usually, as his wife, I would be included, not because I wanted a free meal, but because it's important to maintain a good relationship with the in-laws. I struggled to make sense of Michael's actions and began to feel a growing unease about our newlywed life. From then on, things seemed increasingly off in our marriage. After that dinner episode, Michael frequently visited his parents' house for various reasons. "It's my cousin's birthday," or "Can't make it today. Mom asked me to come over." As a first-time bride, I just nodded, thinking this was normal. But during a dinner with a friend whose marriage had more years under its belt, her surprised reaction to Michael's frequent absences made me question things. "He goes home that often? And leaves you alone for a cousin's birthday? That's crazy!" she exclaimed. Her shock made me realize this wasn't normal, and I felt embarrassed. "You're right, it's weird, but Michael says it's normal." Don't take this the wrong way, but hasn't he really grown up yet? Her words hit hard. It seemed odd for a 32-year-old man, poised to take over his father's business, to prioritize family matters so frequently after marriage. I regretted not seeing Michael's true nature before we married. Feeling disheartened, I returned home to find my mother-in-law in the living room. "I'm home, Scarlett." "Where have you been?" she inquired, expecting me to have been waiting with dinner ready. "Michael was out, likely at a convenience store." "Weren't you and Michael supposed to dine out tonight?" I asked. She explained the dinner was canceled due to a restaurant issue and thought Michael had informed me. Checking my phone, I saw a message from Michael sent just as I got off the train. There was no way I could have prepared dinner in such a short time. He did message, but I just saw it now, I explained, frustrated. Her next comment stung sharply. This is the problem with kids from single-parent households. You can tell they weren't raised right. I was raised by my single mother after my father died when I was young. My mother had worked tirelessly to provide for me. It has nothing to do with being raised by a single parent. I just hadn't seen the message yet, I retorted, visibly irritated. She dismissed my comments and shifted the topic. Well, anyway, I've always noticed this, but your house is quite small. I think it's average, suitable for just the two of us, I responded, defending our choice. You can't be serious, she scoffed, undermining our decision yet again. I often felt sympathy for Michael having to live in such a tight space. My interactions with my mother-in-law were consistently stressful. Both she and my father-in-law, perhaps due to their affluence, tended to be rather patronizing, which was why I never really connected with them. Realizing that further conversation was futile, I began preparing dinner quietly while she turned on the TV, seemingly ignoring me. From that day, she started showing up unexpectedly more often, and sometimes even my father-in-law joined her. They frequently criticized how messy the kitchen was, or how small the house seemed, and would sarcastically suggest, we have a much bigger house. Why not move in? I was adamant about not wanting to live with them and firmly declined each time. They always seemed to visit when Michael was not home, so he remained unaware of their disparaging comments. I once tried to discuss it with him, but his response was disheartening. Why not? What's so bad about living together? From then on, I realized discussing this with Michael was pointless and chose to endure the situation on my own. Our first wedding anniversary, which also coincided with my birthday, was approaching. For your birthday this weekend, I'm thinking of celebrating more grandly than last year, Michael said, slightly tipsy from an evening out. His face was flushed, and I wasn't sure if he was sincere, but knowing his penchant for celebrations, I couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Last year's dinner was wonderful. That was more than enough, I replied. That's nothing compared to what I've planned. Let's go on a family trip, he announced. A family trip? The phrase struck me as odd since it was just the two of us. Noting my confusion, Michael added, my parents, cousins, uncles, all will join. We're heading to a luxury resort in Palm Springs. I was puzzled. All those people? And why Palm Springs? I questioned, unable to understand why he wanted to involve his entire family in our anniversary and my birthday. Michael, somewhat oblivious, replied, sounds fun, right, Scarlett? Sometimes you've got to let loose and enjoy. Despite my initial reservations, as the trip preparations went on, I found myself looking forward to the vacation. Maybe it was Michael's optimism or the rare chance for a getaway, but a genuine smile slowly found its way onto my face. I knew my in-laws might throw their usual jabs, but I resolved to pay them no mind. Finally, the anticipated Saturday arrived. Michael and I reached his parents' house, our gathering point for the trip. Well, Scarlett, you're late, aren't you? Do you even realize you're the star today? My mother-in-law chided in front of everyone. Though her tone was sharp, the recognition that I was supposed to be the center of attention softened her words slightly. I'm sorry, there was traffic, I apologized. Excuses won't do. We should leave soon, she responded, her tone suggesting urgency rather than understanding. We were already late for our luxury resort, and the family's grumbling about our tardiness was becoming a familiar background noise. Despite their comments, I kept my composure, reminding myself that such remarks had become a regular part of the past year. Michael's cousin, who looked much younger and had a rather sinister glint in his eye, didn't help the situation. His unexpected snide remark, "This is Michael's wife?" Not what I expected, caught me off guard, but I chose not to respond. Instead, I turned away, deciding that showing maturity was the best response. I'm so excited! I've been to luxury resorts multiple times, but tonight's place costs $22,000 per person, someone mentioned. The figure made me pause. $2,200 per person seemed exorbitant, but it also sparked a nagging suspicion in my mind. Once we all piled into my in-laws' car and my father-in-law hit the gas, the journey to Palm Springs, expected to take about 3 hours, began. We planned to take a short break at the next rest stop. About an hour in, I excused myself to use the restroom. "All right, off you go," my mother-in-law said dismissively, waving me away as one might shoo a stray dog. Inside the restroom, I took a deep breath, relieved that the trip had been uneventful so far and hoped for a similarly smooth continuation. Just as I was settling into this thought, my phone vibrated with Michael's name on the display. Expecting a mundane request, I answered casually. "I'm still in the restroom, Michael." His response, filled with what sounded like amusement and accompanied by laughter from my mother-in-law, chilled me. "Sorry, but we've already left." "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, my voice echoing the confusion and rising panic inside me. "We're going to have fun with our family." "You should just go home and clean, Scarlett dear. Today's trip is just for the Mitchell family. It's a pity, but you'll have to stay behind. Goodbye." The line went dead, and I stood there in stunned silence, the laughter from the other end of the phone still ringing in my ears. This betrayal cut deep, especially as today was not only our wedding anniversary, but also my birthday. I had been looking forward to this trip, despite my reservations about his family. But to be abandoned at a rest area like this was beyond painful. I managed a shaky okay, trying to mask my anger and betrayal. Leaving the restroom, I immediately called a trusted friend who, upon hearing my story, was equally shocked and quickly shared some unexpected news that took me by surprise. "Really?" I asked, desperate for some confirmation. "Yes," they assured me and promised to come and pick me up. Left alone and feeling helpless at the rest area, I was praying for a quick rescue. About an hour later, my uncle arrived to pick me up. "I'm so sorry to trouble you like this," I apologized as I got into his car. "It's okay," he reassured me, his presence a comforting reminder that not all was lost. It was quite an unexpected turn of events, realizing they were headed to a luxury hotel in Palm Springs, a detail that made my uncle pause thoughtfully. "I think that's the case," I replied to his silent query. "I'm really sorry, but could you please take me there?" "I'll take the train back." My uncle, understanding the gravity of my request, gladly agreed. The drive was scenic and somewhat soothing, giving me a moment to collect my thoughts. About an hour later, we arrived in Palm Springs. Ahead of us was a luxurious inn with a grand gate, known for its exclusivity and hefty price tag of $2,200 a night. At the reception, I was preparing myself for what was to come when I heard a familiar voice. "Scarlett." "It's been a while," greeted my mother, elegantly dressed and carrying her usual formal yet warm smile. To anyone else, her demeanor might have seemed overly formal, but to me, it was just Mom being Mom. Indeed, this inn had been run by my mother's family for many years, and she was the current innkeeper. After becoming a single mother, she started working at this inn, making it a second home to me. I had called her from the rest area, surprised to learn there was a reservation under Mitchell Securities. I had suspected they might be headed to a luxury hotel, but never imagined it would be the one run by my own family. Of course, they don't know this inn is run by my mother, I thought to myself, realizing the irony of the situation. What a terrible story, Scarlett. "You can't just let this slide," my mother said, understanding the full context. "Yeah, I know. That's why I came here," I responded. My mother suggested, "Why don't we get you changed over here?" and prepared me to confront them at the dinner table. An hour later, at 7:00 p.m., the in-law family gathered for dinner. I hid in the next room, slightly opening the door to observe unnoticed. Inside, the family was unwinding, unaware of my presence. The spa was amazing. "I'd want to come here every day if I could," one remarked, the others agreeing enthusiastically about the luxury and ease of their day. As they spoke about the prospects of Michael becoming CEO and the perks that would come with it, their true characters showed through their unguarded remarks. But when my mother appeared to greet them, the room went silent. "Today, I will be in charge of serving you. Please let me know if you need anything," she announced with perfect grace, creating a noticeable tension among them. As they resumed their meal and inappropriate discussions, my mother and I did nothing but watch. It's great that we all could come. We got rid of the bothersome daughter-in-law, and the food is delicious, one snidely commented. Perfect, another added, though with a hint of caution. If you say that, she might get angry, you know? It's fine. She's not really one of us, to be frank. She never was. After all, it would be a shame to have a child from a single-parent family in our household, my mother-in-law said harshly, unaware of who was listening. At that moment, the frustration inside me reached a boiling point. Just then, my mother re-entered the room, her timing impeccable, ready to address the situation with the poise and dignity she always maintained. A room adorned for celebration. A dessert plate brimming with cake and fruit sat at the center, marking a special occasion. Today was a double celebration for Miss Scarlett, her birthday and her wedding anniversary. My mother, eager to join in the festivities, asked about Miss Scarlett's whereabouts to properly place the cake. The room fell into a confused silence, the family exchanging bewildered glances. "Didn't anyone mention it to you?" my mother inquired. The innkeeper interjected. "I heard about the celebrations myself." "Did Michael mention anything?" The question hung in the air, met with an awkward silence and anxious looks among the in-laws. Finally, the mother-in-law raised her hand and sheepishly admitted, "I'm Scarlett." I was too shy to bring it up given my age, but I really appreciate this wonderful surprise. She was the only woman present, making her declaration quite fitting. My mother, however, could only offer a weak smile, amused by the unexpected turn of events. "What's so amusing? Is it odd for someone my age to enjoy a surprise?" Scarlett asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "Not at all," my mother reassured her. "I was just thinking about something else. Let's bring out the cake." Before we could proceed, Scarlett's mother-in-law interjected sharply, wanting to add something important. As she spoke, I took a deep breath, readying myself for another revelation. "Scarlett Mitchell is actually my daughter," my mother declared, stunning everyone in the room. Murmurs of shock filled the air. Seizing the moment, I opened the door from the adjoining room and stood beside my mother, announcing, "This innkeeper is my mother, and it's a pleasure to meet all of you." Michael, caught off guard, exclaimed, "Scarlett, why are you here? And what do you mean she's your mother?" I explained, "It means just that. This inn is owned by my family, and I plan to take over its management someday." Michael had never actually met my mother before, partly because she was always busy with the inn, but also because Michael and his parents had been reluctant to meet her directly. Although Michael had called me for our wedding introduction, he had never met her in person. After showing my mother a picture of Michael and explaining who he was, we had managed an unconventional introduction. From what I overheard earlier, could we please avoid making any insensitive remarks about my mother being a single parent? "We are just stating the facts," I said, addressing the underlying tensions and hoping to bridge the gap between our families. "Here's a simplified and expanded version of your narrative, rewritten for clarity and detail." In the midst of a family gathering that was meant to celebrate, tensions unexpectedly flared. "What's with all this sudden drama? What grudge could you possibly hold against us?" Michael demanded, his voice echoing a mix of confusion and disbelief. None of them, not Michael nor his mother, seemed to grasp the depth of disrespect I felt they had shown me. Frustration that had been simmering within me finally boiled over. "Grudges? If we're talking about grudges, it all starts with you, Michael," I retorted sharply. "I thought I married someone who was genuinely caring, but it turns out you're nothing but a mama's boy. You should be prioritizing our marriage, not teaming up with your parents to belittle me." My words left Michael speechless, and all he could do was stand there, stunned by my directness. My mother, who had been a quiet spectator till now, listened intently as I confronted my in-laws. "Why do you all treat me like I'm just an annoyance? If that's how you feel, maybe it's best if I just leave the Mitchell family right now." The room went silent until Michael's mother scoffed. "What? Are you really ready to be alone?" Meeting her challenge with a steady gaze, I replied, "Actually, it's okay. I'm pregnant. So I won't be alone. And with the inn as part of my inheritance, I won't have financial worries either." This was news to everyone except my mother. I had discovered my pregnancy just last week and had confided only in her, which explained her calm demeanor amidst the storm. "A child? What are you talking about?" "I hadn't heard about this," Michael stammered, his previous arrogance replaced with uncertainty. "Scarlett, if that's the case, it changes things." "You should have told us sooner," he added, his tone softening. But it was too late for soft words. I was tired of their unpredictable and unreasonable attitudes. "No, my decision is final. Let's proceed with the divorce through lawyers. I will live happily with my child and my mother," I declared firmly, my resolve unshaken. With that, I opened the door to the hallway and exited the room, the door slamming shut behind me with a definitive sharp noise. "I'm done with this. My child will be happier without that family," I murmured to myself, walking away. Despite their attempts to reconcile, which included over 28 calls a day from Michael and his parents, I blocked all their numbers. A few days later, I received a letter from Michael, officially confirming our divorce. It was filled with pleas for reconciliation and expressions of regret. I simply tore it up. Given his history of prioritizing his parents over me, I couldn't risk that he might do the same with our child. Now, as I nurture the new life growing within me, I am planning a future with my mother by my side. Once my child is born and a bit older, I plan to send them to daycare and join the inn's business full-time. The path to becoming the next innkeeper is long and challenging, but I am determined to work hard to raise my child properly and manage the inn successfully.